Before we get to the episode, I would like to announce that, in my opinion, I have absolutely reached my pinnacle in video editing skills, and by reaching my maximum potential, I mean I've at least learned how to simply put two videos proportionally on the screen, of which I am unspeakably proud, and surely the quality of the sound has been improved. I will forever say that Red Hot Chili Peppers fans are absolutely nicest, friendliest people in the world. My current guest is Theo. We've had an absolute blast of a conversation talking about Red Hot Chili Peppers and everything Chili Peppers related. So without further ado, Theo. Platform. Have you used this platform before?
No, never. Yeah, I wasn't sure how you're going to do it, like Zoom or whatever, but...
You know, I'd been previously doing it via Google Meet, pretty old school way. You know, everybody got surprised about it. Then I understood that the quality really sucks when you do it via Google. I don't really know, honestly, how I'm going to do it. This is the first time I'm doing it via Zencaster. So after the conversation is done, let's just pray to all gods that this thing saves correctly.
Fingers and toes crossed.
So let me ask you what the time is with your place.
So it's 7 p.m.
Oh, 7 p.m. It's 8 a.m. You know, the problem with this podcast, I wholeheartedly enjoy them, but man, early awakening is not for me. Totally not for me.
I did think, like, I kept Googling, like, what the time was out your way. Like, man, I'm pushing my luck making this guy get up.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I've been dealing with some sleeping issues anyway. So, well, I was going to tell you welcome to kind of greet you back from those double concerts, right? Was it a double show that you recently visited?
Yeah, it was. They did two shows, but there was like a week in between them, which was different to the last times they've been here. They've usually just done back-to-back shows, but this time. Yeah,
which one do you prefer?
Like, do I prefer the back-to-backs or? I mean, it's easy. It's much easier because this time around, while they were doing two shows, they were in separate islands in New Zealand. So, like, the first one was in the North Island, and then the second was in the South. And just having I live in the North Island, so having to like do flights and accommodation for both places. It's just like another little...
Is there like big distance between those islands?
Well, I mean, I flew to the South Island, so that was like an hour flight.
Right. Oh, okay.
If you were to go by car or anything, you'd have to get a 3-hour ferry ride first.
That's bearable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
And then a drive, like, to where the show was, you'd have to drive from where the ferry lands for about 8 hours to then get to where they were doing the show.
Interesting. And it's pretty amazing that they decided to spend the week basically in the country, right? I would imagine lots of fans found it amazing.
Yeah. From what I saw, at least on social media, it looked like they hung out a little bit with Serge Tankian from System of a Down, because he lives out here.
Yeah, I have seen some photos.
Yeah.
Oh, so he lives there, really?
Yeah, he's got a... Yeah, I remember years ago when I was in school, he made a big deal about buying a house in New Zealand and wanting to set up a studio for people to come record in.
Has he done it?
Well, weirdly, I think because it would have technically been a business, I think immigration said there's no need for it. We've already got studios here. And I was thinking, what are you doing? This was my chance to hopefully meet Serge from System, because I would have tried to like shoehorn my high school band and
really?
Never mind that we were dreadful.
Sure. Yeah, I keep pointing out to this fact. I keep focusing people's attention. It's like, you're a Chili Peppers fan. Most likely you at least have attempted to play a musical instrument, and most likely you have at least once been in a band, right? I would imagine that's the case with both of those with you, right?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I haven't done the band thing for a while, but all through like school and early 20s, I was doing it. It's just
what
fun.
Musical instrument do you play?
I did I did rhythm guitar and lead vocals.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Kind of because someone had to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it singing. I would call it shouting in time.
Perhaps like pretending most like, well, doesn't everybody pretend, right? I think it's a big part of everybody's, at least maybe not pretending, but to sort of following and getting inspired. Good. And what kind of stuff would you sing? Would it be something rocky and in that front?
Yeah. If I had to compare it to anything, it would probably be like Foo Fighters kind of stuff. Just simple, straight ahead, straightforward rock music.
Mostly covers or any?
No, we did our own tunes. But if we were to do covers, we did do a couple of Foo Fighter ones. We never did, as much as I would have liked to do some Chili Pepper songs. We just weren't talented enough,
Really? You've never attempted?
Well, we attempted. I mean, typical. The one song we attempted was "Snow," which for like a guitar
that's
player,
a hard one. Why would you go for the hardest one in the beginning? Yeah. Right. The guitar player must have been like, "Yep, I'm over." Right. That's it. Okay. And so was it bad in terms of playing the guitar mainly, I would imagine, because I have never tried that. I'm not even going to try it. Obviously, it's a suicidal attempt. Yeah. So it was hard in terms of the guitar, and was it hard for you in terms of vocally?
No, I don't think singing would have been too much of a problem, but at the time it was just me. Like, it was a 3-piece at the time. So I would have had to do the guitar and the singing. And, if you take the fact that I struggled at the time to like do that guitar part to then sing on top of it, like John does with his backing vocals, I've been like, forget about it. That's
No so you guys had a bad start. You had a pretty illogical start, and then this was it, right? You didn't continue with the Peppers.
No. I mean, I've learned plenty of them at home and, jam around on them at home. But no, never in a band setting. Because
had you wanted to go on, what song would you have continued to move on? Like, what would have been a more rational choice rather than Snow? To perform and sing.
Maybe something like Ready Made, because that isn't too different to, I guess, the kind of stuff we were writing, just in terms of like the riff and the big chords and the chorus and things like that. And I think, singing and playing that at the same time, probably not too tricky.
I feel like that song gets missed a little bit. Like, it's such a representative song of the Chili Peppers. Got this typical spirit of the guys, but it's like you don't hear about that song too often.
Right? It's kind of like that random hard out heavy rocker that
but at the same pretty funky, right?
Yeah, definitely a groove to it. No, they don't really do a heck of a lot of that nowadays, I've noticed, but
oh no, they don't. I don't think they do, for sure. I've been thinking about, I talked with a person last time about that song, So Much. What do you think about So Much? Do you know that one from Stadium?
Yeah. I mean it's a very cool song. I mean, at first, like, I vaguely remember when I first heard it, when you first got the album, and it was like, it stuck out as the song that has like that very repetitive verse guitar part, that ring-a-ding-ding-ding-a-ding-ding-ding. Like, after a while, you're like, this isn't the
you didn't really get it first, right?
Yeah, but it's one of the songs where, like, as time goes on, it just creeps back up and reminds you, like, hey, it's actually really...
I'm still here, right? Haven't paid attention,
I thought it was weird that I remember they played it at Live Earth.
Legendary.
Yeah, big, huge
Was event. It back when Josh was on the maintenance somewhere behind, right? So did he perform the chorus or something? Right?
Yeah. And I thought, just of all songs for them to put in like such a short set list, they picked that song. I thought,
interesting, right? Yeah. So what do you think about the process? How do they go about picking up what's got to be performed? Have you ever thought about? You must have thought about like who decides, how they decide. What you think about it?
I mean, they've been pretty open in that Anthony is kind of the deciding like person, you know, because I guess for a singer, you've got to put together a set list that a singer is going to be able to make it through the whole thing. Like, he's probably not going to do a whole show of songs like Ready Made where he would be shouting all night long.
He might attempt it at least, right? I don't know how
Yeah,
it's going to result.
maybe not if he's got like a whole tour to do following. Like maybe he'd do it at like a one-off kind of thing. But yeah, I like to think that even though he's kind of the guy who writes the set, that, you know, people like Chad would have the ability to be like, I really don't want to play that song tonight.
And it's got to be like that, I imagine, right? If somebody's opinion is not included, it's crazy.
You'd hope so. Well,
okay. Have you ever been lucky? Well, how many shows you've visited? 4, if I'm not mistaken. You said something.
5.
5 now, right? So that's been 5th recently. Have you ever been lucky to catch the set list that they throw in the crowd sometimes?
No. I'd love to. That'd be like the ultimate thing to frame and put on the wall.
Yeah, the life is done, right? You can die happily, right?
Yeah. No, it never happened. I've gotten a set list from like other shows I've gone to, but Chili Peppers is like the one that I really like.
So what other shows have you been to?
Like other Chili Pepper shows?
No, other bands in general.
Oh, too many.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a thing like New Zealand being at kind of the bottom of the world. Bands don't come here too often, and it's always kind of been that way, unless they're going to go to Australia as well. But there's been a pretty good handful, so it's like whenever someone does come, you kind of you jump at the chance because you know you're probably going to wait another 10 years for them to come back.
You better not miss the train, right? Not miss the opportunity. So pick me up, like give me like top three. I know it's a bit of a tough one, probably, but what would you select?
I'd go with Metallica.
Man, that's it. You know, you may not continue, right? I think you've made it. Yeah. Okay. Was it a long time ago?
Yeah, 2010.
Oh.
They haven't been back since.
Really? Yeah. Aren't they on tour right now?
I think they're gearing up to, because they've got an album coming out.
Have they released it or not yet?
No,
not yet. Yeah. What was that last one? Was it called Black or something like
Hardwired?
Yeah, why did I say Black?
Self-destruct.
Right. Yeah. Did you like that one?
Yeah. It was kind of everything that I wanted in a modern day Metallica album. You know, it had the groove, it had the fast stuff, it had kind of the slower tempo. The only thing missing was kind of the typical Metallica ballad, but it was still a really good album. It was like for people that were approaching 60. Pretty impressive effort, you know. It'd be an
Same case with our boys with Chili Peppers. I won't be tired saying that there's no better kind of new music than new music from an old band that's been around for a while and now they're still dropping something. It's really the best kind of new music to me.
Yeah. I think that's something that I kind of, because I think we talked briefly before this about like what the reviews were about the tour down here, and how people were a little bit, you know, miffed at the number of new songs. I think it's mainly because people maybe have forgotten or not paid attention to, even though these guys have been around for 40 years and are like in their 60s now, that they're actually still active and putting out new music. And not
so it feels like those fans feel like kind of even betrayed perhaps a little, like, what do you mean reach out, right? Yeah. What do you mean fake as fuck? Give me Californication, scar tissue. That's pretty arrogant of us, I imagine.
Yeah, I think they really thought, especially after, you know, no shows being able to be done for a couple of years, I think they really thought that they'd play a night of all of your old favorite radio hits and stuff like that, you know, and you'd just have a great time dancing to your old favorites. And then they come out and play stuff like The Drummer, which is not only a new song, but a pretty different new song. Like, they don't have a heck of a lot of songs that sound like almost like New Order kind of vibes.
I would imagine. So let me take you back to I'm With You. Did you notice anything around the local people, like in terms of pushback on the new material? Because I imagine I'm With You and then even The Getaway, they turned out quite different, wouldn't you say, in terms of the sound?
Yeah. I mean, even me, when I first heard I'm With You, it was silly at the time, but if I think of it now, I was just like, no, John, not interested.
Really?
I was just so hooked on him. And when I heard that he left, I was like, well, I guess I'm done then. I'll just listen to all of the old stuff.
So what brought you back?
Well, then my brother got I'm With You before I did. And, he and I were it's like our mutual musical interest. And he was playing it, and I think it must have been something like you press play and it starts with Monarchy of Roses, and we're like, this is actually kind of cool.
It still hits, right? Still hits that note in your heart. So you actually had made the decision to quit on the band before you had the I'm With You album, right?
Yeah, I guess it was silly. Just, when you're young, you're dumb, I suppose.
Yeah. Jump to these conclusions, right?
Yeah, without really thinking it through. And I don't know, just because I was such a huge John fan and so inspired by his guitar playing, and, he was probably my favorite guitar player at the time. And I just thought, how do you fill me? Yeah, you can fill those shoes technically, but the void is going to be massive.
It was there. It was always there, right?
Yeah, people still feel that way now.
Really?
Yeah, I think
now, even when he's back.
Well, I think it's almost like a double-edged sword now, where at least what I see online is people they were so attached to how they were back in 2006 stadium stuff, and what they do now is stylistically a little bit more relaxed. They're certainly not, running around the stage like he did. I've watched that Slain DVD where John runs off into the wings and is playing a 5-minute guitar solo at the end of Parallel.
I don't mess with that video too often because it's so good you can't abuse it. I feel like I don't want to get overdosed on that thing. I watch it maybe once a year, when it gets really appropriate and perfect.
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of people get hooked on how they were and don't necessarily, accept that change is allowed to happen.
Right.
So when Josh came in, people were like, where's our boy John gone? Not interested. And I fell into that group at first. But then as I spent more time with I'm With You, it was weird. It totally changed, because then I was like, I don't miss John at all, because the stuff's great. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not happy that he's back now, but it's interesting now, the change where throughout Josh's time in the band, you would see comments online that were always saying, bring John back, bring John back. Whereas now, majority of the comments that I see online are people saying, play Dark Necessities again, play Goodbye Angels again.
Yeah. Man, there's no way they do it. Ain't no really way. What do you think? That would have been too good to be true, right? Imagine them performing Dark Necessities. I keep wondering how that would sound. What do you think? How would Dark Necessity be with John?
I reckon it would sound pretty amazing.
Think about
the outro.
What was that?
Would become like a whole
Goodbye Angels. Imagine that final solo with Goodbye Angels.
It's such a shame.
John. Yeah,
it's such a shame that the likelihood of them ever playing the beginning is so low, because I almost feel like when Dave was in the band and John, I think it went out in the press, he said, oh, I've not listened to it. I don't feel right about it. It's, I'm not interested in hearing it or playing it. And I almost wonder whether or not the reason they're not playing Josh era songs is because they've just assumed that John won't play them.
Yeah, they never even talk, you think, to him.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, have they ever actually had a chat in the band room or backstage?
Yeah.
Like,
has anybody approached John and said, well, you heard about Dark Necessity, brother? That was a big thing back in 16.
It was actually a really big hit. And
for sure, yeah.
So it just seems so weird that they wouldn't play
Is it still in top 5, I imagine? I believe it's still like top 5 on Spotify, Dark Necessities or something.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that would be really interesting to know how they go about those albums that have been recorded without John. I mean, there must have been a talk like that. I just don't imagine neither of those guys be like, yeah, we better not bring it up with John, because John might flip. I mean, come on. You guys have been on a tour for so long. You're a family right now. You can't talk about certain things. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So, okay. Now, to take you back a little bit to those concerts, you said Metallica was one of them. What the other two?
Yes, so Metallica being one. I do remember there was this big festival thing that was held in my hometown. It was like a 2-day event where like Kiss, Alice Cooper played one night, and then Ozzy Osbourne and Poison played night.
And that was all in one day?
It was like over a weekend. It was like one night, Saturday.
And then the fans must have been exhausted, I imagine.
Yeah.
Physically was challenging.
Yeah, and that was a pretty cool show. I mean, I do remember Kiss in particular. They were meant to come on stage at a certain time, and they came on stage like an hour and a half later than they were.
That's what they always do, all of them.
Because it wasn't dark enough yet, apparently, for their liking.
Wow. Okay, they were waiting, right? Sitting behind and waiting.
Yeah, they didn't want to play in the sunshine, otherwise.
I wonder if any band has ever come on stage before the time they thought, okay, well, let's go now. They always take the time and stretch it.
I was impressed with these 2 Chili Pepper shows. They were super punctual. Like online, it's told you doors open, Post Malone on at this time, Chili Peppers this time, and literally to like the second that actually happened.
So you've actually seen Post, right? He opened before the Peppers. Yeah. What do you think about him as an artist?
I'd never heard anything he'd ever done before.
Really?
So it was completely new to me. I'd known the name, and I had seen he did do a little jam at the Grammys with Chili Peppers.
Dark Necessity, yeah. I talk about that with people. What you think about that performance? It appears to be a bit like, it's like Snoop Dogg with Chili Peppers. Like, what are you doing there, right?
Yeah, it's just like, I would have been happy if they just played Dark Necessity.
Without nobody.
But, but I'm probably not going to be listening to Post Malone recreationally in my own
not
time.
Your thing.
It's not really my type of music. But I was very impressed with his performance, like the way he interacted.
Very physical.
And you could tell he wasn't pulling any punches or anything. Like, he was really going for it, and I was impressed with that. It was funny when because seeing him at both shows, it was funny kind of seeing that at the second show, all of his in-between song banter was the same. It was almost like he had cue cards or like a script. Because the stories were all the same.
Like a comedian that repeats his bit.
I thought like, he's this much of a performer. Like, I wonder if he's going to go do this speech in Australia.
And what was that banter? What was that? Like, do you remember anything like that?
He was always like calling his own songs rubbish, and he was saying, he said, like, give it up for this particular roadie, and he did it the exact same phrasing after the exact same song at both shows. And then I remember he also did what was it? It was he was saying the love that he was feeling that night from the crowd made him feel like he was no longer scared to be a parent anymore because there was so much love in
which is a beautiful thing to be repeated a couple of times, right?
Yeah. It was like, fair play. I just noticed it's like it's the exact.
But that's those rappers, man. You know, they hit something and then they preserve it and then they sort of monetize it until it's completely dried out. You know, I think that's what they do. So they try to take the most benefits out of it. So yeah, it's cool. But also, you think about warming up for the Chili Peppers. Like you gotta pay attention to what you say. I imagine, right? You can't just probably off the cuff like that and not thinking about nothing.
At the second show in Dunedin, Anthony did a funny little banter
with Flea.
With Flea, where it was so like they really punked the crowd for a moment. It was like, I've got an announcement. Flea will be retiring. And the whole crowd and myself, I looked to my brother and I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't have John come back and now Flea leaves.
That would be stupid, right?
This is not acceptable. And then he quickly, I think he realized, I mean, he knew what he was doing, playing it that way.
And he was like, oh, shit, right?
So he quickly was like, will be taking over as New Zealand Prime Minister.
Okay.
Was our Prime Minister
probably take it, right?
Yeah, because our Prime Minister had resigned literally like 3 days before.
Oh, really?
So, it was just like, okay, apparently Anthony was watching the news in the hotel room.
Yes, my guy been on TV a bit, right?
He's got a week between shows. He's got plenty of time to watch TV.
Man, yeah, I love that. I love the fact that they sometimes throw in these little conversations that are like sometimes so. It's some bullshit, straight up bullshit sometimes, but it cracks you up all the time. I wonder, it'd be nice. I think I'm going to create later a post on Reddit with compilation of like best those kind of interactions in between the songs. That would be really amazing because they're short and sharp and sometimes nonsensical, and the way how it fits perfectly before certain songs, it's really
my favorite one is when you listen to Leverage of Space on the Hyde Park album. At the end of the song, Flea says, I really love blueberries. I eat them in water. And I just think, where did that come from? He's in front of a sold-out crowd, 100,000+ people, and just decides to say, I really like blueberries. I eat them.
You can't blame him for that, right? Fruits are cool.
He's using his platform for the important stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's just letting it out in the world, right? Man, it's usually Flea that says some shit like that, right? It's always this guy.
And I hear it every time now.
Really?
Whenever I listen to that song, I just hear
blueberries. As soon as it starts to be like, blueberries are common, right? That's crazy. You see, I totally don't. So that's at the end of the song, right? Live at Hyde Park. Yeah, it's a beautiful. What is it? Back in 2004, right? Must have been around those days.
Yeah, like greatest hits, kind of.
So Leverage of Space, you don't get to hear much. Do you remember the full set list from that live? What that was
from Hyde Park?
Was there anything that you wouldn't normally hear? I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I mean they had like Don't Forget Me and Radio Television and stuff like that. But
have they performed Don't Forget Me this tour lately?
I think just once. Once, I think. Man. I saw someone do like his tour statistic thing. And
okay. That's a great one.
Could be wrong though. I think it's mainly Throwaway Your Television that's getting the like non-hit exposure from
some people don't appreciate Throwaway Your Television. What do you think?
I think it's a really cool song. It's a great live song, so I get why they play it. But I actually have got such a vivid memory from when I saw them play it with Josh, and I thought, like, I don't know, when they played it this time with John, I just thought, man, it's totally different, because I just remembered Josh was just going ballistic on stage. Like he was running around, bending over backwards.
Who you said? Josh?
Josh, yeah.
Josh.
When they played Throwaway Your Television with Josh in New Zealand, he was like defying gravity with
For
yoga
sure, he was doing some wild paranormal shit on stage, like he was possessed,
yeah.
right?
And John was the complete opposite. You know, he kind of just like stayed at his pedal board doing his thing, which, you know, it is, you know, different strokes, different blokes kind of
John
thing.
does go off sometimes. I feel like,
Yeah.
you know, in certain moments he can also be possessed by some kind of musical spirit getting him. Yeah, Josh did live his soul on stage plenty of times.
Which I appreciate now when I think back on his time. It'd be like he had the impossible job. No one they picked would have. No
I
one would
don't
have
know,
been happy.
man. Like the amount of pressure, first of all, and the amount of shit that he must have taken. Like the man probably did not go on Google comment or on YouTube comments ever.
I mean,
Right?
imagine that, just like being hated for not doing anything yet. Like it was just John is out. This is our new guitar player, and that's all the people online needed to just be angry. Like he hasn't even
Crazy.
done anything yet. You haven't
Right.
heard a note yet, and you're angry at him. Like how that must be so weird.
But with time, one does grow a bit, obviously, takes some musical maturity, or maybe perhaps like exclusively Red Hot Chili Peppers maturity to grow this appreciation of those two albums. If you had to choose between those, which one would you go with?
Probably I'm With You.
Yeah. It's
And I know
because
a
it's
lot.
got like more emotional like resonance for you.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people would pick The Getaway, I think, but I don't, yeah, I think just the songs have more, I guess, sentimental meaning to me on I'm With You. I also think like Brendan's Death Song is amongst like the best songs that they've ever done.
Really?
So
Yeah. Best
for
songs
that
you've never
reason,
heard live and
yeah,
most likely will never hear live. They haven't, yeah, they've done it live though, right? Back in
yeah,
11th or
I
something.
think they did it a couple of times,
Yeah.
but it wasn't one of the songs that kind of stuck around.
But such a potential for that song. When I heard that first time, I thought, shit, well, it's going to be Second Californication, you know, and then surprisingly never came around.
No,
The video is amazing, right?
yeah, almost like a little short movie in itself.
Right. Yeah. Very stylistically beautiful, I feel like.
But
Great.
I think I like what I like about that song. I mean, melodically, it's really cool. I think it's got a really great guitar part, and Chad goes nuts on the outro chorus. But it's kind of the one song in recent, if you can call it recent, 2011, but where Anthony's lyrics are on a totally different level. Because I think, particularly with the new albums, you kind of can't deny that Anthony's. I'm not going to say that he's dropping the ball, because he's not. But
In terms
the
of
lyrics,
like nonsensical sometimes, right?
the lyrics are a little bit more weird than they have been before. And they always have been, and we've always had that with Chili Peppers. But these two albums, it's like another level of, well, I guess only he will know what this is meant to mean, because I'll never figure it out. Whereas
What do you think of Unlimited Love and The Return? Would you pick some songs that would actually make lyrically an obvious sense? Because you can interpret those lyrics mainly differently. Like, what is this about? What is that about? And that, you know, I love those threads and subreddit, or whatever you call it. This what is it like when comment is posted? I never remember this word. Is it like a thread or something like that?
I'm not the most savvy.
Yeah.
I would
Whatever.
call it
Like
I'd call it
those posts when people create like compilations of the craziest lyrics. You know, that means the list. You know, I love those. When I read it, I always like it, upvote it all the time, because it's just, you read it and you think, yeah, man, what the hell is this? Like, what the hell is it? So would you pick up any song that actually clear, that kind of is easy to understand lyrically?
from the new two.
Yeah.
Well, when I first heard Black Summer, impression that I got from it was like, this is the COVID song. I'm waiting for a black summer to end.
Ecology, right? Those kind of stuff.
And like it's been a long time since I made a new friend. What I got from that was, okay, he means he's not been able to go out and interact with people.
Interesting.
We've been in lockdown.
Nice.
And maybe that's because a lot of people were doing COVID albums and COVID references in music. But that's what I got from it when I first heard it. But when you listen to the verses of that song, it's classic Anthony. Emphasis on the melody and the rhyming scheme as opposed to telling a story. Only he will know, I suppose.
That's a good one. It's a great one.
I like that he doesn't tell people this.
Yeah, me too. You would much rather him not be a bit discreet about the lyrics, right? You don't want a song that is completely about black and white, right? You want a song that is like, what the hell is it? And then everybody is able to bring, which is a clear one, not the one. It's hard to misinterpret it, I feel like, right? Yeah. I'm just straight up. I'm not even ashamed of looking at the album because, what do you think about what you're thinking? I got to ask my people on the podcast about songs exclusively a bit more. So what's your opinion on what you're thinking? Do you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That bass line is insane.
Fuck,
it's like beautiful. He's found, to play a bass line is one thing, but Flea's like, I'm going to find the most difficult bass line where I go from this end of the fretboard to that end of the fretboard, and he's just all over the place.
So is that difficult?
Well, maybe not, but to me it just sounds like he's going from all ends of the fretboard in one go, and not many. I don't know a heck of a lot of other players.
Now, what are the chances of hearing Tangelo live? Do you think it's even happening in any time?
Probably not while they're doing a stadium tour.
Some sort of acoustic performance.
Yeah, if they were going to do it, probably at, they do that Silver Lake benefit thing every year. That would be my bet for where they play a song like that. Because, just have John and Anthony go up and do it before the others come on and play the rest of the show. Do
you get the impression sometimes that lately all of the albums, they have to include at least one completely maybe acoustic or totally like mellow and soft and romantic and perhaps depressing song? It's like, lately in all of those albums, there must have been one track that was like that.
I don't know. It's an interesting idea, though.
Yeah,
I don't know if they've got I don't know if they've got like a checklist where they need to.
You see, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. Yeah.
Like, we need the fast song. Yes. We need the funky song.
I don't think about the fast and the funky. I just particularly think for some reason about this heartbreaking, mellow and slow.
It's because they do it well, so we've kind of gotten like used to hearing them and wanting to hear them. I think for me, it's more like I always wonder how Chad feels about those songs, because it's like Road Trippin', Tangelo now, and even songs like If. These are all songs that have no drums. And
what about My Cigarette?
Yeah, even songs like that, or In the Snow with the drum machine, just like, how do you tell your powerhouse drummer, who's considered one of the best rock drummers there is,
to sit down a little bit? Well, maybe he's the one who proposes it, maybe he's the one who comes up with you guys do next one without me, right? I'm a chill a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a song like Tangelo, I can see why there might not be drums, but I do find it a little bit interesting. It's not bad, but it's interesting that for a song like In the Snow, which technically has drums, it's not being played by the world-renowned.
Man, it's all John. I'm telling you, it's all John messing with his drum machines and electronical stuff. It's all him, I believe. It's all him. I feel like him and Chad, they seem to have pretty good chemistry, and, they just find some compromise, obviously, I think.
I think it was to be expected that when John came back, that some of his wacky solo synthesizer stuff would find its way back in to the sound.
I'm happy it's not abused too much, because it could have been more, obviously. Considering this last album that he's just dropped, you listen to this latest stuff?
No.
Well, probably you shouldn't. If you're not into his electronic stuff, man, it's hard. I'm telling you, it's hard to perceive. I don't know. It's like...
I mean, some of those albums they're like real, you either love them or you hate them. I mean, Metallica have 2 of those albums where it's like you're either on board or you're not.
And you better be on, I feel like, right? You still want to appreciate the band, why not, right? Just hop in.
Yeah. Like, it might not float your boat musically, but it's good if you can be like, if you can acknowledge, hey, they did something different.
For sure.
And for people for musicians in their 60s to be trying new stuff, you can't accuse them of being a nostalgia act for doing a song like My Cigarette in their 40th year as a band, because they could have just so easily just gone and done Can't Stop again, and they didn't.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I don't know. I appreciate those songs that stand out. I truly do appreciate those songs. My Cigarette is probably my top 3 of the album of the last. Man, I love that shit. Honestly, I allowed myself a little bit of emotions when, as soon as the album got dropped, I went and read it. I said, you guys don't understand. This is the second Californication or some shit like that. Then I sat back a little bit. I thought, nah, I mean, I let the time sink in a little bit, and then I understood, not really, but I mean, I just love that shit for some reason. Really resonates with me. Really stands out to me. What are your top 3 of the last one?
So top 3 on Dream Canteen. Top 3, probably. I'd say Peace and Love.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think that's just classic. That's
for sure, yeah. It fits, really fits.
I did think Reach Out was great when I first heard it. I thought, this is a song that needs to be played live, and when it is, it will be great. And then it was.
And you've heard that, right? They played it on those. Oh, man.
Yeah, when they played it in Dunedin, I turned to my brother, I was like, whoa, a debut. Like, they hadn't played it live yet. And I'm like, gosh, this is so cool live. And probably Fake As. Because I think that chorus is just great.
Right.
With all the horns and stuff, that's just so much fun. I'd say those 3 are probably my favorite.
For sure. They performed this one, Fake As Fuck, or Fake As Funk. I don't even know. Yeah. It's interesting how some people go with funk and some people go with the other way. Yeah. Right. So they did perform it live on those shows you visited recently, right? Yeah, holy shit, you lucky one. I mean, that's crazy. I think they've sort of established almost, I feel like with this New Zealand shows, they've established like new set list for themselves. I think they've kind of, right? They're going to stick to it.
It's something I've noticed over the years, because I look back at the set lists for the past times they've been out here, and I don't know whether it is because they don't come here often, but they do tend to treat us when they come to New Zealand. So like for them to play a live debut of Reach Out, that was cool.
There must have been a conversation like, who do we preserve it for? Should it be the States or New Zealand? Right? Should it be Texas? no hatred towards Texas, whatever. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Well, you know why that is because you guys are always ahead of everybody, and you're always the first to get access to those albums, right?
Yeah, true.
Like for sure. Like before 1 day, 2 days before, there will definitely be this dude from New Zealand who's got it, and he's just distributed it all on Reddit.
True. Yeah. No, I haven't thought of that, but yeah, and. It's funny. I sometimes see online people get angry about it because they almost like, "Where are our New Zealanders? Why haven't they posted the link?" Hang on, I didn't realize I had
New Zealand. That's like some kind of music dealer or something. You've got to have a contact, right? Because you got to hit the guy up.
Doesn't always work though, because I mean, I don't know how interesting it will be on a Chili Pepper discussion, but I know. Just because it interests me. I know that the latest Taylor Swift album,
Got leaked.
the way that she had orchestrated the release was that it would be released at the exact same time all around the world. And you would think, oh, well, that just means midnight, but New Zealand time zone wise will get it first. But nah, she actually made a point where her team went to CD stores in New Zealand and basically gave them like a instruction saying you are not allowed to sell this album until 5 p.m. on Tuesday because it won't be midnight yet in America.
Crazy.
So everyone who pre-ordered the album,
you wait with everybody else,
didn't get it on release day because it wasn't technically meant to be out yet because it wasn't midnight in America yet. I
feel like it's pretty offensive to you guys how she specifically went about you, and she was like, there's this one country, please make sure that you don't get the early access, right?
There's emails and everything because like the CD chain JB Hi-Fi, there's like an Australian chain that has stores in New Zealand, and because I've got like subscribe to newsletters, there was a legit email that came out from the store saying, if you've pre-ordered the album, you will not get it on release date because we've got a strict
That's disrespectful, you know, that's just straight up disrespect. That's what it is. Can't believe it. Wow. What's the problem when somebody gets it 5 hours earlier? It's going to be distributed anyway. You see, if you've listened to, I come up with about this topic with my guests often. If you had Anthony on Joe Rogan, he spoke of that. If you remember, he spoke about people leaking that stuff, and he's perfectly fine with it. Because I've got to confess, I hope no services are after me after I've openly spoken about it. I was one of those bastards who just let it out like that. You know, there was one guy before me, I think on Reddit, who downloaded it and he had it on Google Disk. So my ass jumped to that, downloaded it straight up, you know, and then later it got taken down somehow. So I actually still have it on my phone. Just download it, you know, just straight up download it. Yeah.
No, I can't judge because I'll be honest, with Dream Canteen, I got the leak as well.
Oh, yeah.
But my justification was I still went out and bought the CD once.
Ah, you did. Nice. Yeah.
I played by the rules. So Anthony got my $15 anyway.
Yep. That's good.
But it was just, you know, it's that typical just curiosity just got the better of us, and we just wanted to hear it early.
Yeah, how long was that before it was officially released? Wasn't it like something crazy, like a week or something?
At least a week.
Man, that's crazy. I would not be able to. Yeah, you gotta forget about Reddit. If you're one of those strict discipline guys who waits for official release, forget about the internet, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So you downloaded that thing from somebody's disk or something? Yeah.
Through Reddit. I got someone uploaded a link, and I downloaded it and enjoyed it very much.
Yeah,
made sure not to spoil it for anyone. But
really,
I thought,
did you have to? Did you resist like about any songs?
Well, when I saw that people had done the same thing and were downloading it and listening to it and discussing it, saying, "Oh, bloody blah."
And usually it's a very blunt and kind of obvious comment that goes like, "Fun. What is it? What is it? Fake as fuck is the shit. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. No explanation, no comment, no nothing." And you go like, "Oh no, I don't want to be prejudiced. I don't want to be preoccupied about that." Right? Yeah, there were comments like that, just short and sweet, right? Whatever anybody, there were no comments as far as I can recall that would be negative about any of those songs.
I think people were just shocked at the idea that a second album so soon after Unlimited Love was being done, because I know they'd said they'd recorded 70 plus songs, which they did for Getaway and I'm With You as well. But I don't think anyone thought that they were just going to be like, "Oh, well, we'll put them out randomly."
Immediately. let's get into conspiracies a little bit. I've talked about that with previous guests. Are we really likely to receive some unpublished material from the Getaway? And most important, well, from I'm With You we did, because there are those B-sides of I'm With You.
But there's even more in the vault apparently as well.
Really? From I'm With You?
Yeah, well, because they'd said something like they'd recorded upwards of like 50, they'd written over 70, they'd recorded around 50. And if you take the 14 or whatever it is on I'm With You plus the 17 on I'm Beside You, that still leaves like more than 15 extra songs still sitting there.
So it's been confirmed, right? That they did like 70 or 50?
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to do some digging to find those articles, but I'm pretty sure they were pretty upfront about it, because they said like they didn't want to set any limits for themselves. So when Josh joined, they just wrote for a whole year before they got in the studio. And,
interesting.
You know, a song can be written every 5 minutes. So if you've got a whole year to write songs, there'll be.
Do you think it's out there somewhere? Somebody's got it from the public, or is it somebody from close to them?
I mean, it's hard to say, because did you hear those 2 songs from the Getaway sessions that randomly just came out of
space nowhere? And what was the second? Kaylee, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know where the name Kaylee came from, because it's not said in the song. I don't think so. And
yeah, sure, right, yeah, right.
But
I don't know.
But the thing that I found interesting about it was that those 2 Getaway B-sides got released within like the same week or so that Unlimited Love came out. I just thought,
really?
Is that that's
that's the kind of conspiracy that I'm talking about.
Yeah, like
makes you kind of hopeful a little bit, right?
Yeah, like new album comes out with John, and then 2 Josh songs come out within a week or so.
Oh, you think Josh might be dropping that? You think he might be doing a bit of shady work, right?
yeah. Like I wonder, because he's said in interviews that like he got asked like, what do you think's going to happen to all that stuff you were writing for your 3rd album? And you say it'll probably just sit there. But I don't know how true it is, but I have seen something on Reddit where apparently one of the songs on one of Josh's Plural One albums was something that he wrote.
Really? With Chili Peppers. Have you listened to that album of his?
Yeah, but I'm not super familiar with it. I need to spend more time with it. So
interesting.
I can, memorize it fully.
I'd like to know if, I'm going to do a bit of research afterwards. I think it would be interesting to know. I'm sure it was eventually sort of changed and edited and all sorts of things, but just to hear what potentially could be a possible Red Hot Chili Peppers song would be nice. Yeah,
I mean, without Flea kind of doing his thing on it, I'm sure it's totally different to the version maybe they were jamming on together. But yeah, at least to hear what Josh's side would have sounded like. Pretty cool. I need to go back and listen to it again.
Josh is surely unique, and I feel like if he had been given a little bit more years, we could hear some real stuff right there. Because some of his riffs, like what was that? I think Sick Love. No, it's probably not Sick Love. What was that one before Sick Love? Do you remember there was like this? I think they dropped it on their Instagram back in those years, how they were rehearsing, and Josh was doing that intro. It's a really good one, and a lot of people pointed out that it might be his best one, or their best one with Josh.
Is it The Longest Wave?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I think so. Yes, for sure.
I know that song gets a lot of praise for the guitar playing.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Josh is just a genius.
Yeah. It's crazy to write such a beautiful riff.
I think he's a genius. And I really appreciate how he was just so different to John's way of playing. because he could have just, stepped in and copied and be like, so this is what a Chili Pepper hit needs to sound like. And he didn't really do that. There's not really a Chili Pepper song before him that sounds like Dreams of a Samurai.
No, yeah, you're right. People miss that, right?
Especially those I'm Beside You songs. There's no Chili Pepper song that sounds like Your Eyes Girl or Hometown Gypsy or anything like that. It's like, this
correct. But one thing that has always been there is how prone they are to these sorts of experiments. With John, it was different. It was not that different as with Josh, but it was also different. Like If, right? How many people even heard about If outside of this community, right, of fans?
Yeah, exactly. The thing that I find really interesting about them, more so than any other band, I mean, I'm always willing to learn more about other music, but I find that they're one of those weird bands where they can play with any genre they want, and yet it still sounds like them. It doesn't sound like it sticks out like a sore thumb. If you take a song like Hometown Gypsy, which is almost bluegrass, country western,
for sure,
kind of vibe, and yet it still sounds like Chili Peppers. And then you take a song like Joe from John's B-side era, which is just straight up reggae. It still sounds like Red Hot Chili Peppers.
What is it?
Whereas if you took like a reggae song and popped it on a Metallica album, it would sound weird because it's not what they are known for.
You're right. I know. I've always known it, but you phrased it beautifully. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's just they've got a sound where they can do whatever they want, but it still sounds like.
So what is this in you ever thought about what it's it? Is it Anthony's voice that's pretty outstanding and distinguished? Because I was gonna say, well, instruments, but then it's only guitars and drums. Like, what is it?
It's a weird thing. Like, people talk about musical chemistry and stuff, and sometimes I wonder whether or not people who haven't played music with other people, whether they fully understand it, because it's very real. Like I can't claim, and I never will, that I have ever played in a group of the same caliber as Chili Peppers or anything like that. But I definitely know what they mean when they say, when Flea says that he's got a supreme chemistry with John. And
that's crazy.
I totally get what he means, because when you're playing with people in a group, it's funny. Like Dave Mustaine from Megadeth said a really great quote that I totally agree with. He said, "Playing in a band is the closest you can be to someone without having sex with them." Because it's so true, because you're basically putting yourself out there for judgment from the rest of the people in your band, and if they don't like it, they're essentially saying, like, it's always interesting when sorry, I keep getting distracted, but when how have you ever noticed that when someone quits a band or leaves a band, that the PR statement they always say is blah blah has left the band for artistic differences, and that's meant to be like the PC media friendly version of the story, so that people don't ask questions, because no one wants to hear that their favorite band broke up because they had a fist fight, or no one wants to hear that they didn't like each
You've
other.
got to be politically correct, right?
Yeah. But the weird thing is I've maybe because I've played in bands and I felt that way with my band members, is that to leave a band for artistic reasons is actually like the most gut-wrenching thing you can say, because if you're basically saying, I've got a problem with the way you're
express yourself. Yes,
like your personality does nothing for me anymore.
Intimidating, vulnerable, right?
Yeah, because to come into a room, it's like, hey guys, I wrote this song. It's actually a really hard thing to do.
I would imagine. Yeah, you're putting yourself out there for criticism.
Yeah. So for someone to then quit after 20 years, especially, like John did, for him to say, I'm not into it, it's almost like saying, what happens in this room doesn't excite me anymore.
And a fucking breakup, that's what it is.
If someone had said that to me, I'd be like, what? That's like crushing. What
yes,
do you do?
Yes. See, a lot of people are talking about John's mindset and what was going on in his mind behind those decisions, but very few people talk about what actually guys were going through when John left. I mean, dang, you don't lose John Frusciante every day, right?
No. I'm sure for a moment there, they probably thought, I guess we're done.
Yeah, for sure. I think Fleas said about that openly. Yeah. He said, or Anthony, somebody said that at some point that was it. And then who was that? I think it was actually Flea who proposed pushing forward. Yeah, well, and I think John put out Josh's name. I think Josh had been around at that point.
He was the logical guy to do it. I can't imagine anyone else. I mean, who would they have gotten? You can't have Slash come join Chili Peppers. That would just be weird. But yeah, and that's why I think it's funny when people say, why did they need to fire Josh? Couldn't they have just had two guitar players? To me, it'd be like, that would be almost even more of an insult to Josh, because it's like, not only are we going to bring back the old guy, but we're going to demote you at the same time.
No, that ain't an option. That could be, and there was an option back when John was the main one, and Josh was like this, rhythm guitar, whatever he was like supporting. Yeah, but then after this switch of roles, that's impossible. That's impossible to keep them both. Musically... Sorry. Oh, no, go on.
I reckon, and a part of me thinks that as much as I really like the Josh material, I don't think I think he would have, had he not been fired, I think he would have quit eventually anyway.
You think so?
Because as much as he clearly enjoyed it, he also made it pretty obvious that he wasn't overly thrilled with how things work. Like, he wasn't a fan of Rick Rubin's approach to producing and stuff like that.
I knew it recently only, that it was Josh's initiative to hire, Mickey Mouse? What's he called?
Danger Mouse. Well, imagine having one Mickey Mouse coming.
Man, that's pretty close, huh?
Yeah. I think, he pushed for the different producer, but then he even said, like, I think he would have preferred the band to self-produce, because that's what Josh does with all of his solo stuff now.
And how would that be different, you think, musically, if they'd done it?
If they had self-produced, I think I can imagine Josh kind of steering the ship a little bit. So we might have gotten more guitar assertive stuff. Maybe less radio friendly. We might have gotten a little more of the experimental stuff that they were doing on The Getaway. So it would have definitely been interesting. I'm sure management probably would have come and said, there's no hit, we need a hit.
For us, though, for fans, for hardcore fans, things would not have been much different, I feel like. No. Our story, probably our relationship would have been probably more or less similar to what it was, because most of us still perceived those albums as still kind of experimental, especially I'm With You, when they were sort of still searching, kind of groping that taste with Josh. So, but for the general public, it would have been probably a bit worse. Right.
Yeah. I mean, you don't hear stuff like Rain Dance Maggie on the radio all that often. At least not in my corner of the world. I don't hear.
Wasn't it big though? Back when it was released, it was considered. Sort of.
Yeah, and it made complete sense as like a introduction to the new sound. I think it it was a good lead single for them to start off with. But I think people will probably be like, "Where's the big outrageous guitar solo?"
Yeah, I was having a lot of inner struggles. I clearly remember that. I think I actually joined. It must have been either 2010 or 2011. And even if it was 2010, even if it was prior to their release of I'm With You, I was not having a permanent access to the internet, so I just couldn't follow. I couldn't read like, oh shit, that's a release date, you know, and boom, you've got the whole thing. So I was like slowly and gradually kind of introduced to it. And for sure, and I was having a lot of, you know, struggle because I thought, well, there are these lives with this hairy guy who looks like Jesus, who shreds, completely goes out of his body, you know, and has some sort of astral projection on stage, right? And then boom, this guy and the way how they sounded, you know, what I felt like my immature perception of the band was like back in those years when I was only getting into music and listening stuff, I felt greatly heartbroken when I heard the difference between the live version and the studio version, and I thought, shit, wait a minute, you're trying to tell me that Anthony doesn't sound as perfect as he sounds on a studio album? And I hear, because, you know, objectively speaking, my boy goes down sometimes. Anthony does have a couple of not best performances.
He was on those Josh era tours, I think it's pretty fair to say that those weren't his finest years
for sure.
as a live singer. He kind of started doing this very nasal approach to singing,
and that was noticeable.
Suddenly,
right?
Everything sounded like he was singing with that on his
So
nose.
he was doing that on purpose, you say?
Well, singers, I know some singers that I followed, they're pretty upfront. They tell you that they make deliberate choices on stage in order to preserve their voice. You know, they'll change the way that the vowels sound to be easier on their throat. Because, you know, if a guitar player breaks a string, they can change it.
You ain't doing shit like that with voice. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen or heard some cases when a guy kind of bit more than he can chew on stage, and then the show goes down.
I don't know how Dave Grohl does it, because he screams his head off every night, and then he...
What is it? Do you think it's a skill, or is something you're just born with?
It's a bit of both.
Yeah, for sure. It's
a bit of both. Because there are some people who can do it for years. You know, someone like Rob Halford from Judas Priest, he's sounds better than ever, because he's just, I don't know, people who treat the voice like an instrument, look after it, and it will serve you well. You know, and that's not to say that Anthony abuses his vocal cords or whatever, but I think, who knows, maybe he wasn't doing enough warm-ups backstage, or like vocal warm-ups. I'm not sure, really.
I feel like Don't Forget Me is the one that really gets hold of Anthony, to be honest, and takes all of whatever he's got, it takes all of it. I feel like always it's a bit of a, you know, it's got to be like that one final shot. You either make it or you don't, right? That's how I feel. Like, yes, I always imagine myself singing it. I'd be like, yeah, well, I make one that one first scream, and that's it. You know, that's all I got. So you guys better not expect me to perform afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I think that also kind of circles back a little bit to what we were talking about, you know, when it comes to who chooses the song that they play in a set list. Because I noticed when Unlimited Love first came out, Black Summer was like the second song of the night, but then pretty quickly it became something that they would play at the end of the set, and I wondered whether it was maybe Anthony was like, that chorus is quite, you know,
energy demanding, right?
He's got to push that note, you know, he's got to push that bit, you know, you know, waiting for another Black Summer, he's got to really push it,
right?
And maybe it's like, I don't know if I should be doing that at the beginning of the show, because that's going to mess me up for when I've got to sing Under the Bridge later.
It also makes sense in terms of, you probably would agree that some of their greatest hits are usually closer to the end of the set list. So yeah, that's partly, I've always thought that it's kind of in terms of, it's been done for some almost marketing purposes for people to stay. That's how I've always felt. Like, don't go before you've had Californication. But then I also think, as you're talking about that right now, I feel like, it's also probably because Anthony wants to kind of save himself for the best, right?
Yeah, because Black Summer wasn't, I mean, it was the first single back, but it wasn't like
big
show closing worthy yet.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, sure.
It makes sense now that it's at the end of the show, but
they close it with Black Summer?
I think now it's generally like the second to last. Like, I'm pretty sure it goes Black Summer and then
Salt to Squeeze, by the way.
Yeah, well, at least that's what they did in New Zealand. They closed the shows.
See, man, I don't know, talking about By the Way, I liked By the Way more with Josh. Honestly, this is wholeheartedly honest of me, it felt like it was performed a bit quicker. And then, what was the difference? I think, is Josh on back vocal on By the Way? Yeah, the way how he went, by the way, tried to say, that thing. Where this is totally not the case with John. John goes by the way, try to, a bit more classical. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I could just be dreaming it up, but I'm pretty sure if you listen to the studio version of
it's like that.
And it's multi-tracked. So there's more than one backing vocal line. Because I remember when they played Dozed for the first time live with Josh, people were commenting that the backing vocals that Josh was doing were not right. I wish he would sing it the way it is on the album. But when I listened to it, I was like, what are you on about? He is, because it's multi-tracked. John sings this line, underneath it there's this one, and Josh doesn't have two mouths. He can't sing both at the same time. So he just picked one, and he's chose the less obvious one to be his.
What would that be? Okay, I can barely recall that. How was it? Something like I don't know.
It's so like in Dozed, it's John sings a line, Anthony sings a line, John sings a line, Anthony sings a line, and it's those ones where in this instance it was Josh's line to do. It says like way up on the mountain where she died. John would sing it his way, but underneath it there was like a higher harmony that would go up and then down. And when they played it with Josh, he chose to sing that harmony line, not the lead line.
Got it.
That's why I think people are going, hey, he's not singing it right. Why doesn't it?
So you think Josh took this really scientific, elaborate approach, and he analyzed it carefully, right? So he tried to stick. Yeah.
Well, I think he just, he just picked the one that was maybe more comfortable for him. But I mean, when I heard it, I thought he's not doing it wrong. He's just doing it the other harmony, and it sounds fine.
I didn't blame him for doing it differently. It definitely stood out to be different, though, for me.
But I think that song for me now is like the White Whale, where they need to play that with John now. Because they've proven they can. They've proven now. A lot of people say, it can't be done. It needs more than one guitar. Yeah, well, that didn't stop them doing it with Josh. They got another guitar player. Just do it again.
And wasn't it performed on Slane Castle show, Dozed?
No.
It wasn't? It was Venus Queen probably, right? Yeah, because those two songs are, for me, they're like in the same boat all the time for some reason. Like Dozed and Venus Queen. Yeah, like another example would be Detroit and This Ticonderoga, right? For me, those two songs, like, I don't even distinguish them. It's the same, for some reason. It's like this twins that's on the record.
Well, they're like the middle songs where they kind of, when you've got an album that has songs like Dark Necessities up front and then Dreams of a Samurai at the end and Encore and stuff like that, you you kind of forget about the middle of the album. I can't even remember the last time I listened to Detroit or
You don't? Yeah.
On the Flowers. They're good songs, but I can't remember the last time I listened to them because I'm drawn to those other ones.
So what do you appreciate? Dreams of Samurai?
I like how different it is. I think. I mean, it's not the one that I'm, pressing play on first when I'm going through the Getaway. But yeah, I don't think it was the last thing I expected. Was some psychedelic.
It's very psychedelic. It's totally trippy.
5-minute long psychedelic, weird, different.
Don't you think that In the Snow is somehow in that psychedelic neighborhood as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. That's when I heard Dream Canteen the first time. I thought so this is the experimental album. This is the one.
Really?
It's a little bit different.
Interesting.
Because the drummer, My Cigarette, however many times you want to say la la la, that song, they're like it's the experimental half to the sessions. So
for a man who's okay saying something like "Ding ba 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 go," well, that's okay, right? So Anthony never had that as a problem.
Yeah, for a guy who puts out a song where the lyric is what ding ding dong.
Yes,
ding, ding,
yes,
yes. I'll let him have la 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 la.
Yeah, la 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 is not is a good compromise compared to that, right? At least it's kind of melodic, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? Obviously he goes conscious about that, about this ding ding dong stuff, right? He's obviously, it's not like he's just fills in because there's nothing. What do you think? Do you think that was partly the case? He just didn't come up with anything logical and meaningful?
I don't know. I mean, if there were meant to be lyrics, there would be.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because someone would have eventually said to him, like Rick or an engineer or John would have been like, are you ever going to finish that chorus or like what? Like, no, the fact that it's been that way since, going on since 99, the fact that it's been that for this many years, just for me, it's like, well, I guess it was just always meant to be.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so what would you pick up as your top 3 out of Getaway?
I mean, I know it's a single, but you can't deny Darkness Is that's
for sure.
Brilliant song. Yeah. I love the song Encore. That's probably interesting. Put that as my number one. That's my number one on the album.
And that's pretty extraordinary compared to that previous. Again, it's fairly experimental, right?
Yeah, I mean, totally like subdued and relaxed and pretty,
rhythmic.
And finds a groove and sticks with it.
And do you remember back in 2014, 15, they started teasing Encore already. Remember that? Yeah. And fans were talking because they would open something with, so the drum line was really recognizable. And I was so excited about that because that kind of intro, I loved it.
I think people cottoned on pretty quickly. They realized this is something they're working on because they've always done jams live, but never, or at least not that I know of, they've never like recycled a jam. When they go play, when they go play Californication live, there's always a jam before it.
But it's always different.
Key. But it's different. Yeah, it's different. They don't, and the intro jams, we know it's going to be in the same key for either Can't Stop or Around the World or whatever it is, but they're not playing the same one. So when they started doing Encore and they kept using it, I think the crowd were like, this is a song that they're working on, and that's why it kind of became noticed.
Now I'm thinking if there was anything like that after Unlimited Love was released. No such songs that was teased like that. Nothing, right?
No, we would have. you'd have seen it
Sure,
talked about
for sure. Yeah,
online.
yeah,
Like people
yeah.
like there's this song that they keep doing.
They
that
probably
song.
didn't need to do it because they knew that not long would pass, right? So they would be like, no need to tease them. They will already be shocked, right?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't count as a tease because I doubt it's real, but you know how in Tipper My Tongue, where the intro and then in the bridge they go back to the intro and it kind of drops down and does that you know, breakdown bit. I swear when I've heard live versions, John, it's almost like, John, you are so close to playing the intro guitar part to Dark Necessities.
Really?
It sounds like he's about to land on it, but he might not have never heard the song or whatever, because it's possible if he's not seeked it out. But you know, when he's playing around those, you know, the 12th and 14th fret and stuff like that, and in that key where Flea's doing that bass line, it's like I hear it and I'm like,
I know what you. Yeah, I just understood it. Yeah,
it's like if the bridge live were maybe 4 bars longer, I'm sure John would eventually stumble on that lick that Josh plays at the beginning of Dark Necessities, and it'd be like, okay, there we go. He's playing a Getaway song, but he doesn't know that he is.
Yeah, well, I like the version when he does it, but he doesn't know that he does. You know, I find it, but that's just might be wishful thinking from the fans, obviously, right? That's just.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you if you really think that John has never heard Dark Necessity, but he comes off as somehow secluded at times. You know, too focused on. So I do accept that he may not have heard it ever. He might have kind of glimpsed it a bit, but probably never gave it a good lesson.
Yeah. He kind of painted the picture that he kind of hid away a lot. So,
yeah, feels like.
I could buy it. If he came out and said, I've genuinely never heard it, I'd be like, it's possible.
Yeah.
You know?
No way, though, he's never heard nothing from One Hot Minute. Now, this time he's got to cut the crap, right?
Well, it's funny because when he first rejoined and they did some benefit show, I think it was like Tony Hawk benefit thing, where he got up and played, I think it was like a Iggy Pop song with Dave on the little small stage. And I thought like, well, he clearly doesn't have a problem with Dave Navarro as a person, so why would he have a problem with Dave's playing? Because I mean, John's surely a James.
Yeah, like so when he's got no issue with Dave, but then he might have, but it's just a bit of a, you know, sometimes, I mean, why would you not play? Like if he refused, that would have been really weird. Like if he straight up refuses.
I also think that a lot of time has passed. So
sure, yeah.
You'd like to think that, I mean, where people say online, like, oh, John will never play them because he's a prima donna, but like, I feel like we're assuming he won't play them. And it kind of goes back to what I said before, like in regards to Josh's material. Maybe Anthony, Flea, and Chad have just assumed John won't play those songs. Like, or
we got to contact them, you know, we got to hit them up.
Just because he said it 20 years ago in regards to One Hot Minute doesn't mean that he still feels that way now, because people change all the time. They grow and mature and stuff. So the fact that John came back to the band is proof that he changed. He quit, went off, did his own thing, and then came back because he changed. So I almost feel like if Flea or Anthony would be like, hey, you know that song Poster Child we wrote, right? Like, yeah, well, we've got the song Walkabout that sounds almost exactly the same.
So... yeah.
And how do you feel about playing Walkabout tonight?
And be like, yeah, actually good, right? I never thought about it. Do you think, I feel like, man, maybe it's just my thinking, but I feel like with this John's ins and outs and all of his overall, let's call it an unpredictable at times nature, very sophisticatedly and profoundly interesting nature, do you think the other guys might be treating him with the most care in terms of like, you got to be careful what you say, because John is the fragile nature, right? Because that's how it feels like, yo, you better not mention I'm with you, be careful, right? So they probably call Josh he who must not be called like Voldemort or something like that, right?
Yeah, he's like the scared little lamb.
Yeah. Be careful, don't scare John. Don't scare John, right? He might be offended. You think that's the case?
I know there might be. A part of me thought when he first came back, I thought it wouldn't surprise me if when he came back, management made him sign a contract that said, if you quit a third time,
we sue you.
There will be penalties.
Yeah,
probably not in the ways of a lawsuit, but he might be fined. Like he might be like, okay, we're going to take instead of this percentage of your royalties, we're going to take this much as punishment that you've come back and you quit again.
I think so.
I just wonder if he
signed anything like that, right?
I just wonder if management said anything like, if you quit again, we will have something to say about it.
It would make perfect sense. I think if I was responsible for that,
they'd be within their right to. It's just whether or not ethically.
But then again, I can't stop. I can't help thinking that even that could offend John. I mean, I'm just so cautious and careful with the guy. Like, I'm afraid of mentioning his name extra time or something, not to whatever. So I don't know. So yeah, that could have offended him, because who knows?
I mean, you don't see signs in the crowd saying "Play Detroit."
No,
you don't see those because probably.
Yeah, the second my man sees it, that's it. It's three of them again, right? It's crazy.
We're not taking our chances. We can't go through it again. Because what are they going to do? They can't They can't say, "Hey, Josh, we messed up. They want to come back."
But I truly believe they've got to. If they haven't, because of what I'm telling you, because of my version, I think they've got to. Because come on, it's like exactly in relationship. What you're gonna put something under the carpet and show it away, you gotta talk. But maybe none of them actually want to perform that stuff, which is unlikely in my opinion. For sure, they want to perform something.
I think we're probably at the point where if any of them called it a day now, that they would stop. They'd be like, no, we're not going to restart again.
You think so? Yeah,
so
right.
I think if John or anyone decided, you know what, I've had enough, they'd probably call it quits as total. But I certainly hope it doesn't come that way because someone threw a temper tantrum over someone writing the longest wave on the set list.
That would be beautiful though, right? Please, longest wave. And John is like, yo, what is that? Do we have it? Right?
Because I remember, and I can't tell if I've just dreamt it, but I swear I remember an article or something where when Josh was first in the band and they did their first run of tour dates, management, because they were managed by Q Prime at the time. I only know that name because they managed Metallica at the time as well. Where apparently they said, hey, you guys need to add Snow to the set list because
you said back when Josh was in?
Yeah, when Josh was in the band, then they were doing his first run of tour dates. They weren't playing Snow straight away. And I swear I saw an interview or a statement somewhere from management that said, that management had approached the band and said, you need to get your new kid to learn Snow because that song was big in these markets. And I wonder whether it would take something like that, maybe if management said to Anthony or Flea, like, hey, Dark Necessities was massive in this
I wish it'd be good. It'd be good.
Maybe that would be like, if you ever thought about playing, like they wouldn't say you should, they'd probably like, if you ever thought about playing those songs next week in blah-de-blah country would be a great time to do it because it was really big.
That would be a very nice approach, actually, a nice phrasing of it, right? That's exactly the way how you go about somebody like John, obviously.
Yeah. We're probably painting a picture of him being a
For
delicate
sure.
little flower, it might not be true. I am willing to stick by the claim that I think they've just assumed he won't play them.
Like unspoken sorts of agreement, right?
Yeah, like, or who knows? Maybe they've just genuinely not thought about it. They probably thought, our boy is back. We can now go play those songs with him again.
The thought has crossed their mind. I'm sure it has crossed.
And they've got 2 new albums now as well.
That's true.
If they're thinking of debuting songs, they're probably going to debut new songs.
Yeah, but still, one little song from the Getaway could do, right? It could still do. The thought has crossed their mind 100%. So good. And what was your overall impression of these last 2 shows? Like, was there anything you disliked to be a bit different here? Like, obviously, lots of things that you found to like, and what about dislike?
I mean, I really enjoyed hearing them with John, because there is a sound to the 4 of them when it's those 4. So I did really enjoy hearing him back, because I know as a guitar player, like when you hear that tone, you'll be like, there it is. That's the tone that
So you actually, first time you heard them with John, then Josh, and then John again.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
And when you hear, and then when you hear that guitar tone, it's like, it's just familiar. It just feels like an old friend coming back. I'm like, okay, we're off to a good night here. It's funny because, I'm probably going to be torn to shreds, but I'm not the biggest fan of the heavy wing.
No, I can get behind that. I feel that.
It's just not one of my favorites, but they played it in Auckland. They played it at the first show, and I don't know, it kind of made more sense to me. I think it's a live song. It's not a studio song. I think anyone who's maybe shares the same opinion that it's not their favorite, if they hear it live in person as opposed to a YouTube video or something, it might make more of an impression, because it did for me. So that was a highlight, an unexpected highlight. The only downsides really were, they could play 4 hours long and I would still want more. And when they're playing the set lengths that they're doing now, there's always going to be songs where you're like, oh, I wish they played this. I'm not one of those people that's desperate to hear Under the Bridge at every show. I don't care, because I've heard it before. We know the song well. I would much rather hear them play. They played Soul to Squeeze instead, and I would much rather hear that because it's a little more obscure. But I think, when they're playing the set lengths that they're doing now, I think they could maybe afford to be a little more adventurous. You got to give them credit. They are playing, new stuff and things. But I did think it was interesting that the Unlimited Love songs have basically dropped out of the set list.
Except for what? Except for Black Summer.
Yeah, Black Summer's the mainstay.
What you thinking? Probably not.
That's only been played once on this tour, as far as I know.
What you thinking's been played only once? Yeah, you think so?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when Unlimited Love first came out, they were powering through them. They played One Way Traffic, White Braids, It's Only Natural, She's a Lover. They played all of those songs, and then they vanished as soon as Dream Canteen came out. And I realized that in their place, they've played the drummer and Tipper, Eddie, and Reach Out. So it's not like, they've ditched the idea of playing new songs. But I certainly hope that Unlimited Love doesn't become one of those albums
extinguished totally.
Forgotten.
Yeah.
Because they've got enough material that's forgotten. I mean, it's crazy that a band that's been around for 40 years, if you add it all up, there's about 20 years worth of material that's not played live.
Correct. That's right.
anymore.
That's
Like,
right.
Or the first four albums, really, because they only play Nobody Weird Like Me nowadays from Mother's Milk. Then obviously One Hot Minute and the two Josh albums. That's
Which
a
is
lot of
a lot.
material.
Yeah, exactly. Three
lot
albums that
of
skipped.
material to not play, all told, between all the John albums. Which is interesting because I remember interviews with them when they said John first came back. Apparently, in the band room, they were just playing the early stuff. They were playing all of the 80s songs. And I feel like I wondered whether if COVID hadn't happened and they'd gotten to do those initial reunion festival shows they had booked, like I think they were going to do Coachella or something like that.
Really?
I wondered whether or not there might have been 80s songs in there because they had been playing them recently, but because COVID happened, they never got to do those shows, and they then instead went into songwriting, and now we've got the shows that we have now. But I just think it's weird for them to say, yeah, when we got together, we played all these 80s stuff. Play them.
Yeah.
We want to hear them.
Do you think B-sides are coming from these two past albums?
What's that?
Do you think B-sides are coming? Some unreleased materials are still on the way?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'd all like it if they did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there seems to be rumors going around that they plan to do another third.
Are you kidding me? Really? There have been rumors like that?
I've seen people say it. I don't know where they've gotten the sources from. But yeah, I've seen people say that there's at least another album's worth of stuff recorded.
Wow. So it could be on the way. No way. Third one. Yo, if they do it, it's going to be crazy. You know what? For the end of our lives, we should shut the fuck up if they do it, honestly. Like 3 albums in a year, basically, right? That's it. What else do you want? They can retire, and I will be happy, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But, I mean, they've got a whole album already that's essentially shelved from the greatest hits era. Where they wrote stuff like Fortune Faded. So it's like... And Chad's apparently said once on Twitter that, these songs will all come out of the vault when they're all retired, and the label wants to do a big box set. And I hope that's true. I hope that does happen, because that would be great to hear all of those songs that are sitting there on the shelf waiting to be heard. Because apparently they're finished, like they got recorded and stuff like that. Like, well, studio time's not cheap. If they put it out, then at least, then that studio time's not all lost.
I feel like I would really love to hear something from The Getaway, and I'm with you, but although I'm with you from The Getaway mostly, because I feel like those 2 that were released in the run-up to Unlimited Low is obviously not all they've got. There's definitely got to be something else and more, but then it also feels like, man, what if it comes out really good? Will it make me feel regretful that John is now in, right?
That's the danger.
Yeah, for sure.
If more songs got leaked and they were amazing, did we get stitched up a little bit?
It always causes some sort of inner battle in me personally, at least, because you've got to be mature musically enough in terms of your taste to accept both of those guys. Not to even mention Navarro. I don't even know why we never include Navarro in the conversation. Like he was never part of it, but it's always these 2 guys for some reason. It's always
I'd be happy if they played Warped again.
Wow, yeah, that would be. Oh man, that record's got a lot of hits.
One Big Mob, that would be great to hear. But I just have to stick with YouTube to hear those now.
I like the fact that back when Josh they did performed was at Airplane a little bit more. We although and now when I'm thinking about it, probably it was just a couple of times, if not once. Do you think the couple of times they performed Airplane?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
One time in New Zealand.
Oh yeah.
But that's something that I miss was in Josh's kind of later time. They were getting really adventurous with the set. And I think a lot of it had to do with Josh kind of maybe going to Anthony, be like, hey, what about this song? Because, you know, stuff like Hard to Concentrate that hadn't been played for a long time. I don't know if they'd ever played it with John before he left. But yeah, Hard to Concentrate that came. I know they've played it with John now. That he's
They have. Oh shit! I gotta catch up. Recently.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
But yeah, when Josh, I like to think it was Josh that was maybe responsible for how adventurous they were getting towards the end. You know, they started playing stuff like Mummy Where's Daddy and Nevermind off the first couple of albums. Then, you know, you'd get random little teasers. You know, Josh would always play a little riff from Stone Cold Bush when they played Look Around live.
Nice.
And then I never ever would have thought that on a festival stage that they would play a B-side from Blood Sugar.
Oh, from Blood Sugar, yeah.
Yeah, they played Sickamicanico.
No way.
Your B-side.
Really? Man, I'm waiting for fucking Eskimo. You heard that one? I always bring this on one. Yeah, like what are the chances? I gotta rest this case, right?
Gosh, it might have happened because it seemed like he was really kind of reminding them of all
that's
of
nice.
These songs.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, sure, we can play Other Side again.
Yeah.
But what if we played If? Which I'm sure there are people probably like, they'd rather hear Other Side.
Sure, yeah. I gotta admit I'd be one of them, honestly. Yeah.
It's like, but I like the adventure, the adventurous nature to it, just the idea of, well, we could play that, but what if we played this song that's never been played instead? And I appreciate Josh's time with the band because it seemed like he was the one really kind of like
pushing it,
reminding them of all these whole.
I feel like they've got to do some sort of interview where the interviewer would be a little bit more deeper in their discography, in their stuff, who would actually raise questions like that, because those interviews, understandably, they seem to be a bit superficial in this regard. So if somebody's got to bring up some, you know, some Eskimo to them on the interview, you know.
Yeah, it'd be very cool. I know I keep mentioning them, but I don't know if you follow them. But when Metallica was celebrating their 30th year as a band, they did these anniversary shows where there were no repeats, no songs across the 4 shows got played more than once.
Oh, that's great.
They had guests come up and former members come up and play songs.
Really?
And the set lists were all like obscure songs or unreleased songs. And I've always thought, like, if Chili Peppers ever did an anniversary like that, I know they've not done anything like that before, but if they ever did something like that, it'd be really cool, because that would be a moment where if they followed the format that Metallica did, you know, they could play a set that has all of the random songs. You know, you might hear songs like Behind the Sun or Taste the Pain or My Lovely Man or whatever, or Eskimo. They might play those. And then in the tail half where all the guests come up, you know, they could have Josh come up and play some songs from his
I'm
era.
going to cry, to be honest, if that happens.
Some of his songs. It'd just be, I thought it was such a cool thing that Metallica did that kind of set the template for anniversary shows for me now, where just now I daydream about all of my favorite bands. If they did something similar, how cool it would be to kind of hear all of those songs.
Right. And feels like anniversaries or some special occasions seem to be exactly the perfect case for that, because you can't do stuff like that on a regular tour, because there will be tons of fans who will, you see these guys walking out when they hear Reach Out. Imagine if it's all from first 2-3 albums, fans would be like, right.
But even then, like, if people are grumbling over them playing too many songs off Dream Canteen, they're not going to be happy if they be like, all right, we'll play Rivers of Avalon then.
Yes. Man, I wish.
I don't know that. They'll be like, well, I don't know that song either. I want to hear Can't Stop or Zep
Would you
songs
say
and
it's
stuff
like predominant majority of concert visitors who are there for Can't Stop and those kind of songs?
It certainly felt that way
Really?
at the shows I went to. At least the pocket of the crowd that I was in at the time was mainly young people, not young enough to make me feel old, but yeah, you know, as soon as the show was over, people were going, "What? Are they seriously not going to play Under the Bridge?"
Wow.
Whereas
Wow.
I knew, like, if you're someone that's followed the band long enough, like I knew, oh well, the show's going to be this many songs, and if the encore starts and they play Soul to Squeeze, that's it. There goes your chance of hearing Under the Bridge. It's
Yes, 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 yeah, right. Yeah, that's something that comes only with experience, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's kind of good from one perspective on the one hand, because they need new audience. And imagine yourself, right, if you got into Post Malone, for example, right, you would probably want to hear those you got into, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of get behind the logic a little bit, but for sure, it's to us, to the sort of I dare consider myself this hardcore fan base, the privileged ones. It's a shame that people walked out. If they did, it's a real embarrassment. It's shame on them. You know, I think I've come across an article that I've seen the title that says something along the lines that the Chili Peppers is the band that you like only if you like them, some bullshit like that. So you like Chili Peppers only if you like Chili Peppers is the band. Some sort of criticism that kind of probably came out after those shows, and it's like you read articles like that, and it's amusing, to be honest. You're not taking it seriously.
The one that I'm always reminded of, because exactly like you say, like they're a band that if you like them, you really like them, but if you're one of those people that's maybe not too familiar with them, you're not that interested. But the number of times I've been in jobs where someone brings up this Nick Cave quote.
Oh yeah.
Where Nick
And
Cave
what was that?
He apparently said in an interview that it's like, the number of times I've turned on the radio,
right,
and it's this absolute drivel that comes on, and I ask, who is this? What is this rubbish? The answer is always Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh man,
And I think,
get the fuck out of here. That's crazy.
Always bring that quote up to me as if they're trying to say, why do you listen to Chili Peppers when Nick Cave says this about it? And my response is, I didn't realize I needed Nick Cave's permission to like anything.
For sure.
You know,
for sure.
As cool as he is and legendary, but it's like I didn't realize music was dictated by what Nick Cave says. So I'll listen to Chili Peppers as much as I want. Thank you very much.
No, I love Nick. I do love lots of his songs, but it's just that. But didn't they recently kind of make it up a little bit? Wasn't there some sort of articles that they sort of Flea and Nick kind of? I think they sort of interacted somehow positively. Yeah, because it's time. It's exactly like in relationship, you know, some time passes, you see your ex, you go like, oh, what's up, bitch? You know, we're good, right? We're good, right? Like there's no trauma involved. There's no pain involved, right? You sit back and you remember good old days, you know, when you fought like cats and dogs. So yeah, that's interesting. Nick is an interesting guy. Well, listen, we've done a good length of this thing. I will press stop, and I will hope and pray that this thing gets saved. I'm sure this time, though, I am not afraid of such loud words. The quality will be considerably better because this thing allows you to edit videos separately and audio tracks separately, so I can ramp up the quality better. Endlessly grateful. We've done a great conversation. This Red Hot Chili Peppers talks are always the best. It's just like a talk with a friend. You know, you share the same musical interest. So it's been fantastic.
I've always wanted to do something like this. I really It's such a great idea. I think it's such a genius move of
Yeah.
to write it together, because I would do it again every day.
Yeah, I'm always, honestly, I'm just in a premonition and expectation of the band giving new info reason. Like they just got to do something so that I bring all these guys back again, right?
Yeah.
And we would go on. You know, I was offering to the first person who agreed to this crazy offer. I told him, yo, when you finished listening last for Shanta's album, let me know, we'll discuss it. And he never got back to me. Obviously he's still processing it, probably, because that thing is hard to, you know, to perceive. Honestly, it's you got to take some time to understand what it means.
And then what we need to do is we need to listen to those Josh Plural One albums to see if we can pick out that song that he
yes, I think so. We kind of we didn't really get into those guys' stuff because they all get something, right? Like I like coming up about bringing up Ataxia. I'm sure you've listened that one. And then Flea has had some side projects, hasn't he? Right.
Yeah, he did a solo EP.
Right. Helen Benz. That's the one that sticks out. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well,
and he did something with Tom York as well.
Oh, Atoms for Peace. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Atoms for Peace. That was. I don't remember nothing specific, but but it's just like, imagine if that collaboration didn't exist. I don't know your attitude to Radiohead, but regardless, still one of the best, obviously, right? Objectively, it would feel too good to be true that somebody like Flea would collaborate with somebody like Tom York, and we just don't appreciate it. I feel like sometimes, you know. So yeah, that's it. Let's wrap this up. So once again, thanks a lot. I will definitely drop you the link after I've edited it. I think it'll be either today or tomorrow. I gotta get a bit of sleeping, obviously.
Yeah, no, don't rush for my benefit. You do your thing about it. Yeah, thank you very much for putting it together and for being patient enough waiting for me.
No, I like it. Yeah, I mean, it's just this mess with the schedules and time zone differences. So that's it. So thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure, and perhaps we'll talk again. I'm pretty sure we will repeat it.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Thank you. See ya.
Take care.